this live, which is also live. I can't keep up. Okay, so what's happening is I'm starting a new live, and I need to share this with the old live. So bear with me for 1 second while I share, while I juggle basically with technology. I am live in 2 places right now, and this is very, very strange. That's so weird. Not allowing us to show up. Oh my God, is this a real mess or wash? I wonder. Okay, I'm gonna have to share. Good morning, Ernie. I need to hop off because Dale can't see. You can't see her or hear her. So I'm creating a new live. I just want to let everybody know. And when I get the link, I'll post it in the comments below. Okay, bear with me. I gotta one. Okay, bye. Oh my gosh, we have other people, so hopefully they'll find us. That being said, I need to refresh my Daring to Suck page. I'm sorry, everybody. This is how it goes sometimes. Daring to Suck in real time. Keri-Anne Livingston here. Sucking in real time with Joyelle Brandt. And here we are. So I need to get this. Just bear with me. I'm going to get this link so I can post it in the other. Oh, and it's not going to let me do that. Oh my God. Can you hear me talking? Just forget it. All right. Here we are live. It's not going to let me do that. Hopefully people will hop onto the new. This is no fun. Unless you can share it. Joyelle, if you can share it in. Can you do that? Can you like get on Facebook and share it in the Badass group?
Let me see here. Let me see.
Yeah, I know. This is life, everybody. When technical things don't, a brand new live stream, and that means everyone that's waiting for the old live stream is now being like, "What is going on?" Because it's just messing with us. So I will share this, and then we will get on with this very important conversation. Frankly.
All right.
Are you? I think I can get it in the empathetic badass. Are you? I can do it. Or are you doing it?
I'm just doing a quick share over.
I shared it in the badass group. Okay. Hi, whoever's here, say hi. We're a technological mess right now. We're doing our best to share this because the first one didn't work. So second attempt.
Okay, I'm just going to share it to the Parenting with DTSTV page, and we're good to go.
This out. We'll figure it out. Right. Okay, I just posted on my personal page, and I posted in the Empathetic Badass group, which I am a host of. My name is Keri-Anne Livingston. Let's begin again, shall we?
Let's do that.
Let's do that. So welcome everybody who is here to have this conversation. Just to let you know, thank you. Ernie's like, you're back. We're back. And Janess, thank you for being here. Welcome Joyelle.
Hi.
Base. And there is something that I want to kick this space off in because just more recently, it's becoming more apparent to me that I need to actually say this out loud. My name is Keri-Anne Livingston, and as a certified coach, an intuitive coach, and healer and speaker, it's important for me not to leave my space, the space that I create, open to assumptions. And so I intend to be clearer from this point onward, meaning that as a straight white woman that identifies as a woman, holding inherent privilege that I'm, whether I like that or not, that is a fact. And that, I can never fully cover or understand or speak to those who hold a different experience. So it's important for me to just say that out loud. And it's crucial for me to declare the intention of my work and the space that I create in these conversations that I open up to make sure that they are inclusive to humans of all colors, all cultures, races, genders, and sexual orientation. And I think it's important that feels important for me to be able to do now. And some people might be like, oh, this is a lot of words, but it needs to be said because a lot of, white coaches or, people in this spiritual community, they're almost leaving it up to assumptions. And I'm just open. I just want to say that. And I also want to be held accountable for that, meaning I don't have all the answers, and I'm going to do my best. And sometimes my best isn't going to be good enough, but that's the intention for the space. And I do want it to be inclusive, and I want it to embody that and not to just talk it. So that being said, I think these spaces, they're a brave place for us to share, to explore, to express, and expand ourselves. That's the intention as human beings that come from all different perspectives, and to honor those different perspectives and even biases, because emotions, abuse, and trauma aren't prejudice. They impact us all, no matter those things. And that these conversations create an opportunity for us to lower the guard, consider that there are other positions, and it's very vulnerable to learn in that place. But that's what I'm asking for. And I'm asking for empathy to walk alongside that, to empathize with ourselves as we open up to our own experiences and our own growth, and honoring and respecting other people and being like, wow, of course, we cannot all see this the same way. So can I try that on? Can I be with all of it? And sometimes, some days that's hard. And so you may not be able to, but the invitation is in my space at least, is that is an invitation. So thank you for letting me say that, Joyelle.
Of course.
And if there's anything, and what I want to do is just introduce Joyelle Brandt, who is here to have this conversation with me about parenting with trauma, knowing that you have traumatic experiences in general that we bring into that relationship of parenting. And Joyelle and I met, I don't know, a few years ago, 5 years ago, maybe, probably when I first started. And Joyelle's a singer, a songwriter, a creative feminist. The list goes on. She just creates from her heart and her soul. And I'm really blessed to have you here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here with you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So is there anything you want to put into the space before we dive in?
Yes, I just like to echo what Keri-Anne was saying about making sure that we're creating spaces that are safe for everyone to be in, and knowing that we're all here together to learn from each other, and would love any feedback you have along the way about that. We're all coming from different backgrounds and different experiences, but we all have a shared history of living with trauma and learning how to create our kids' childhoods in the way that we wish our childhoods had been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, today is actually Mental Health Awareness Day.
Yes.
So I follow Irene Lyons. Actually, she's a leader in trauma recovery and supporting our nervous system. And so I recommend her. I'll post a link for her as well in the comments. But yeah, she was sharing some of Gabor Mate's work yesterday around the beginnings of trauma, and that he deals with addiction and the reasons of addiction and how cycles continue of abuse and addiction and pain, really, and suffering. And he was just saying there's one very common thread, which is trauma, childhood trauma. And that until we learn how to address our own trauma and to express the emotions that we're carrying around it, the cycle won't be broken.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is why I came to this work, is because I really was struggling with that for myself as I was making the decision to have children, and then I had one child, and then 5 years later I had a second. And I really struggled as a parent when I had a lot of moments come up for me that my childhood abuse would be triggered, and I would not know how to manage that. What's challenging when you become a parent is you can't use all of the coping strategies that you used before becoming a parent. So, what typically happens for somebody who's been in trauma is that their nervous system is dysregulated, and the fight, flight, or freeze response gets triggered at moments that are not appropriate, but that take you right back into that experience as a child of the abuse. And before having kids, it's easy when you have that experience of having your fight, flight, or freeze response triggered to find ways to cope with that. And usually that's avoidance is a big one, just avoiding situations that you think might bring that up. Numbing is another really big one, just finding whatever substances or devices help you numb. And those are two things that you really can't do when you're trying to be an effective parent. You can't avoid, because oftentimes what's triggering that response is your children. And if you numb, then you are not able to be present with your kids and in the way that you want to be. And so it takes a whole new level of learning to turn around and face these triggers and learn to be present with them, which is something that we avoid because it's terrifying.
Yeah, it's almost like, I've said it before, where I feel like our kids are just delivered to us to help us open up those spaces. And, they're here to be their own, individual, and they're here to grow and learn and all those things. And yet in the process, often they just absolutely, we have to explain everything, and we have to, and that sounds like, sorry, but we have to laugh, right? Because it's like, oh, that's so lame that I have to explain everything. But there is a part of me that's like, I'm tired. Sometimes not even just from parenting, just from humaning, to explain everything, and then to explain stuff and teach, and like that you're really being drawn from as a resource, as the resource, like to have little people relying on your energy, relying on your stores, what you've got, what you're walking around with, and challenge that is. And a lot of us, I don't think, slow down to realize like how that what else is going on, that it's actually getting closer and closer to those really tender, volatile sometimes, absolutely, where we don't even see it because we've just, like you said, we've coped, we've figured this out, adulting up until a certain time. Oh, I want to have kids, not that we're always that naive. Ernie's just saying thank you for saying this, and Jeanette's just really much thank you from earlier. It is so, I never expected parenting to be that triggering. And to be honest, up until a certain point, maybe even up until I met you, I didn't honor the fact that when I felt like a cornered animal, I never really considered that my abuse or my experience with trauma was being opened. I just felt like a bad parent.
And this is the part that's so frustrating to me is what we have heard from people over and over since Dawn and I started doing this work, because I do all of this parenting with PTSD work with my partner Dawn. I live on the west coast of Canada. She lives on the east coast of the US. So since we started doing this work with parents who are survivors, we keep hearing things like, I thought I was the only one. I thought there was something wrong with me. And the most important message that I can give to anybody who's parenting as a trauma survivor is when you experience these moments, and it could be something like you are breastfeeding your child and that triggers a body memory of you being abused as a child. And then you're going to be overcome by some kind of reaction, either a fight, flight, or freeze reaction. And you may dissociate from your body if it becomes too painful. And so for somebody going through a reaction like that, usually the first place they go is there's something wrong with me or I'm crazy. And what you're experiencing is a perfectly normal and understandable reaction given the fact that you have this trauma history. There's nothing inherently wrong or broken inside of you. This is just how your brain and body reacts after trauma. And now there's such a great growing body of research on trauma and how it impacts us, how it dysregulates our nervous system. People are understanding that so much more. And there is freedom in having that knowledge and understanding. This is just a chain reaction because of what happened to you as a child, and there's nothing wrong with you at all. And you're not alone. That everybody who has this trauma history has had this happen to them too, in one way or another.
Yeah, and yet that's it. What I'm getting is that feeling of like, wow, I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't meet the mark. I couldn't. It's proof. I see that I'm frozen. By the way, I'm okay with that. I am totally okay with my face being frozen. I'm okay with that.
Yes, there's definitely a sense that people often express that it's like a personal failure. Like as if I was a stronger person, then I wouldn't have these moments. That's just not true. It's not true at all. And I hope that when people read Parenting with PTSD and hear the stories of all of these different parents and how they work through dealing with these triggers as they arise of raising children and working on their own personal healing in the process of raising their kids, that in fact, survivors are some of the strongest people you will ever meet. They really are.
Yes. And I hope anyone listening to this gives themselves a moment to acknowledge the experience that the body is learning as well. Like it's really opening up our physiology is what I want to say. And I'm sorry I didn't mention the book right away. We really need to acknowledge the fact that this book that you've written is called Parenting with PTSD, and it's being released this week. And though, as Ernie looks like she has to go, she just thinks she wants to listen because it needs to be spoken about. Can you tell? And she says, I thank you both later. She's going to watch the replay. Thank you for being here. Can you talk about how the book came about?
Absolutely. So when I became a mom, I was really struggling with how to deal with parenting my son. I knew that I wanted him to have a positive childhood, that I wanted to be a good role model to him, that I wanted to have this beautiful, nurturing relationship with him. And then there were moments while I was parenting him when I would suddenly have a flashback to my childhood abuse, or I would have this sudden irrational fear that I was going to become an abuser myself. And these thoughts were so horribly disturbing to me and very upsetting, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And I went looking for books about this topic, and I remember in my 20s reading The Courage to Heal. So there's books out there about healing after abuse, but I couldn't find anything that talked about parenting specifically. And I found that so bizarre that when I went to the bookstore and looked on the aisles, you could find books about just about anything related to, whatever ridiculous parenting trend is on trend now. But you couldn't talk about what was the serious issue of how the cycle of abuse continues through generations. And I was really struggling with this idea, like, how is there not this information not out there? And then one night I read an article on the website Scary Mommy, and it was written by Dawn Dom, and it was called Raising a Girl as a Survivor. And at the end of that article, she said, why are we not having conversations about this? This is really important to talk about. How do we give our kids this safe, happy childhood when our childhood was not safe? And why is nobody talking about this? So after I read that article, I went to bed that night, and I couldn't stop thinking about that. And I woke up the next morning, and I was still I was so excited, first of all, to hear somebody else say what I had been thinking for so long. And I thought, this one article is not enough. We need more. And so I sent her this email, and I said, hi, like, you've never met me before. I'm a stranger to you. I live in a different country, but hey, want to create a book together and collect stories of other parents like us so that we can share them and let people know they're not alone. And to Dawn's amazing credit, she said, yes, I would love to do that. Complete stranger, sure. And working with her in this partnership, which has been 3 years now, has been just one of the great joys of my life. She's just an amazing human being and such a good partner. And I could never have done this project if it wasn't for her. So it's been really amazing doing this and sharing all of these stories.
Yeah, and when I was and actually that feels like when around the time when we met, because it was on Twitter that I saw something, and I don't know, or I shared something, and I remember us talking on Twitter. You were one of my first like social media friends, and it was quite like, yeah, that's exactly how it is. And I was just like, you have to do this. Like, this is so important. And you were actually a catalyst for me. You starting this book was a catalyst for me. I don't think I knew I was going to be a part of it when I did this, but I was like, we need people. Oh, you were calling for stories. It was the shout out for people with experiences. And I shared that willingly, but at the same time, I announced publicly of my own experience, which I had never done before. And I feel that feeling more and more all the time about, I don't think we have time to withhold our truth from other people if it means it can help people heal and grow and to stop the cycle of abuse and to change the next generation. And I'm a mom of boys, like I almost felt like, oh, this is like for moms with girls and, and it was like, no, this is absolutely imperative for us to end the cycle, because it isn't with girls, it's actually with patriarchy and boys, and educating them on what it means to be respectful and of other human beings, regardless of their gender.
Yeah.
Like bottom line, but to have those conversations. So
and to recognize that there are multiple forms of childhood abuse, that it hits both boys and girls. So then they grow up and they become moms and dads, and there's nobody who is not affected by childhood abuse. The numbers show 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys is abused in some way during childhood. And so that means it is literally impossible for you not to know somebody in your personal life who's been impacted by childhood abuse.
Yes. What has doing this project, how is it, what's come from it? Because I know when you first reached out to Dawn, it was like, let's do this thing. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's almost like we don't even know what we're opening ourselves up to. So, and I listen. You still hear me? Am I back?
What did I open up myself to?
Yeah, what did you open yourself up to?
Starting this project meant, first of all, going public with my own abuse history. And how was that for you when you first did that?
I had a few private messages. What I want to say, it was the soft launch.
Keri-Anne frozen right now.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I'm going to keep going here and we'll see if we're still connecting.
Shoot.
So moving public with the for anybody, it certainly was for me. There's a lot of ingrained messages that you get when you grow up being abused, that you should never tell your story publicly, or there will be serious consequences. I mean, as serious as threats of death. And when you're told that as a child, and then you grow up and decide to speak publicly about being an abuse survivor, there's a lot of layers of terror to work through. And I was actually just speaking with Keri-Anne before we went on the broadcast about how when I am working on this project, quite often I will have physical symptoms that come up in my body and almost try to stop me from doing the work. My shoulder frees up, or suddenly my throat's sore. So, if I have a speaking gig coming up, there's a huge amount of resistance because we were told at a very young age to never, ever speak about this. And so I just, for a long time, I didn't. I really avoided talking about childhood abuse. And whenever you avoid talking about something, that culture of shame and secrecy just grows like crazy. And I realized that not talking about it was not a solution at all. And in fact, it made it worse, because I couldn't gather the support that I really needed to move through these really challenging emotions. And I couldn't hear from somebody else, yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
That was the thing that I was denying myself by not speaking about this.
Yeah.
So learning to speak publicly about abuse has been challenging and stressful and hard, and also one of the most rewarding, connecting experiences that I've ever had in my life. I've made these incredible friends who have become a circle of support for me. And what's even more amazing now is, now when I meet new people in my life, it's not uncommon that they learn very early on that I'm a childhood abuse survivor. And that's something that I previously would hold off for, years before disclosing to people. And it didn't destroy my life, amazingly.
Right.
Those big fears that we have about, if I share this with people, how will they react? In my experience, and I know this is definitely not everybody's experience, but there has been absolutely no negative consequences for speaking up publicly. What it's brought for me has been a great relief, great peace, in not feeling like I have to hide this anymore. And I've met some amazing, incredible survivors who are now part of my support circle. I'm super grateful for all of them.
Yeah. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
I know I do have friends who have not had a positive experience disclosing, so I would like to just put a caveat in there that not everybody has a positive experience, especially with family members. Some family members are not ready to hear about the truth of what has been happening behind closed doors in their families.
Yeah.
But if you can find a safe place or a safe person to disclose to and start the conversation, it absolutely can transform your life.
I agree. Can you hear me?
Now we're having some technical difficulties here. So I'm going to hop off and see if we can fix this. It's Daring to Suck page or the Parenting with PTSD page, and we'll see what we can do.
Can you hear me now? Anybody? Can you hear me, see me? No? Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, man. Is anybody out there? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Let's see. I'm going to wait and see. This is ridiculous. I need somebody to say you can hear us. Oh, you can hear and see me. Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't think Joyelle could hear or see me, so I'm hoping she comes back because what she's saying is so important. Every word she shared. I just felt like anyone listening was getting a real life example of what happens on the other side of opening up about abuse, traumatic experiences that we've had. Thank you guys for letting me know. Thanks. I'm getting text messages now. I'm just praying that that Joyelle can make her way back. So I'm going to see if I can send her a note. We had this happen earlier, so I apologize for that. But let's see. Because yeah, the one thing I hear again and again around all of this is that we must speak up about it. To end that cycle, we have to speak up, to open up to others. And at first, we don't always have that great experience, you know, and I'm glad she honored that, because yeah, not everybody gets received, you know, in the same way as others. And I'm just going to send her that try again. So let's hopefully she can come back. So whoever's on the call, you know, how is this landing with you? What is this? You know, are there questions? You know, when we talk specifically about parenting with this, you know, because it's there's the moment that we have, the opportunity that we have to end the cycle. So how do we show up? This is what I would like to keep talking about if Joyelle can find her way back. What I might do is actually see if I can get her on the phone. That might be good too. So please share your thoughts. And actually, you know what I can do? Oh, boo, boo. Joyelle, you there?
I'm here.
Oh, yeah, baby. She's back. What I was just saying is what you shared really opened, I could feel it opening up permission for other people. Like, you're just the embodiment of what's possible, of what is possible when you start to let the truth fall, like let the coats fall to the floor and be like, I have to be that, I have to honor this experience. Yes, not everybody has that experience. When I see, my experience is different, and that's what I mean. We must bring in each one of our experience to say, you know, and some people had an absolutely horrific experience of opening up and letting people know. I luckily did not, and mine was very early on. I opened up to my parents, and I was not only received and understood, but I was supported in ways that I don't even think they knew. They were probably ahead of the game. And because of that experience, I felt like I could, because in my home, you know, it's almost like in that nucleus of a family, because I felt, you know, safe or heard or strong, respected, all of those things, and honored by my parents, by my father and my mother, that I almost felt like I could hold it. I can hold this in public. I always knew I had somewhere to go where I would be accepted and safe, even though of course I wanted my friends to accept me and to love me no matter what, and all of those things. But I think there was something very important about that for me to have that experience, because now I stand in that experience, and that's why I do what I do, is because I understand how important and crucial it is to have those brave conversations, rolling the dice. I don't know what I could have gotten something very different. I'm very aware of that. But yet I didn't. So, and that goes for everybody, whether it's good, bad, or whatever. I really do believe we're given an experience to navigate and to unravel as we grow and change. So specifically to parenting, you know, here we are as creators of new people that arrive here. And there was a question that Martia left on the Daring to Suck page on the original post. So I'm going to do my best to remember what she asked, but it was like, how do you have these conversations with your children, opening them up to the fact that this happens? She said, I don't want to be egregious, you know, like shocking or scary in front of my child, but I want to, to have those conversations about sex, or even predators or abuse, the potential, that the statistics that are out there. How do we do that? So what do you, so I've had my own personal experiences with this that I'm happy to share, but I would like for you to speak to that. And thank you everybody for your patience, by the way. There's a lot of, we can hear you, we can see you, and thank you for the text. So keep going.
Yes. So there's definitely a lot of resources that I can recommend. So I've just posted on to Marta a link to a page called the Mama Bear Effect, which talks about educating and empowering people to protect children from sexual abuse, which is the one form of abuse that, you know, I'm most familiar with preventing. Obviously, there's some things that are, if we're talking about domestic violence, you know, there's not a lot that you can do outside of that home, right? So I think what we're talking about specifically here, she's talking about how do you protect kids from child sexual abuse. So one of the big things is having discussions often and early with your kids about consent and what does that mean, and who do you have the right to give consent to. And it's really important. And this is something that you can do that's just really simple with kids, you know, as young as toddlers. You know, informing your toddler, you need to ask before you give somebody a hug. Maybe that person doesn't want to be hugged right now or touched right now. And vice versa, not forcing your toddler to go and hug somebody if they don't want to. And a really great way to do this that I use with my kids is just to say, would you like to give that person a hug goodbye, or would you like to just give them a high five? And a high five means you get to keep your personal space and nobody has to enter your personal space if you're not feeling ready to share. And having that discussion between your kids of saying, you know, you cannot go jump and tackle your brother right now because he doesn't want that kind of experience right now. Yeah. So knowing that consent is a two-way street is a really important one. And that's very simple, and it's not to do with sex even at all. It's just, this is your body, this is your personal space. And there are two books that I always recommend. One is called My Body is Private. And that one really talks about, you know, a situation where a girl is growing up, she's getting a little bit more, you know, she's probably around 11 or so, she's getting a little bit older, not really comfortable with going and sitting on her uncle's lap anymore. And she has a discussion with her mom about it. And her mom says, well, you know, I can go talk to your uncle if you'd like me to, but it's your body and you have a right to say no. And I want you to know that you can say no to him. And she does, and there are no negative consequences. And the uncle says, oh yeah, I guess you're growing up now and maybe you're too big for that. So that's a very simple entry point book. There's one that's a little more advanced, which is called No Tiny Secrets. And it's no is actually spelled K-N-O-W. Mm-hmm. And that book is a lot more explicit about, here are the grooming behaviors to watch for that sexual predators use. And here's how to say no in these situations. We say no to keeping secrets from our family. We say no if we feel like somebody's asking us to do something where you have that uh-oh feeling inside that doesn't feel right to you. Mm-hmm. So understanding and empowering the children to recognize signs of predators and what to do in those situations. So yeah, those are the three I would recommend. Website, The Mama Bear Effect, the books, No Tiny Secrets, and My Body is Private are great for starting that discussion with your kids. Now, when your kids are getting a little bit older and they're starting to become sexually active, then again, you really want to level up that conversation about consent and what does that look like. And having that frank, honest discussion about making sure and checking in with your sexual partners and making sure that you're being safe in that way is really important. And my kids are only 5 and 10, so I'm not there yet, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it is. I thank you for all of those resources. And we had to, man, did I ever get thrown into the center of it early on for whatever reason. My 2-year-old ended up having an experience with a little girl that, you know, that it was like, show me yours, I'll show you mine sort of thing. And he was just so oblivious. He thought it was great, you know, and I was like, and then I'm triggered. Like, so that's where this comes in. It's like being triggered as a parent, like you just, and I've had a lot of wonderful mentors around me to help catch me in those moments when, and this happened actually recently, where my second, 4-year-old, he was sort of I don't know, show me your underwear or something like with, you know, girls that we know and how funny they think it is and how like underwear is funny and, you know, even the word and like private parts and all these things. And it's just like, as a parent or a survivor of abuse, and like we're talking about this caveat right now, we're talking about sexual abuse, knowing that there are other caveats of abuse, and wanting to make space for all, but to feel that trigger of no, you are not going to be that, you know, as if, and that response, that knee jerk of panic of like, oh my God, is he this, is he that, is like, how do I stop this? And having mentors that are like, it's my nervous system that is absolutely just reacting from a place of experience and like wanting to end it, and the anger and the panic and how that can be received by my kids, as all of a sudden they're just seeing like this. Talk about the mama bear effect, and yet the mama bear effect is usually to protect our kids as opposed to almost like disdain or anger at them. How can you be like that? You know, that is not what I wanted to project. And so to have to, you know, slow down and pull it in and but almost feel this panic of no, I can't, I need to end this now, right? Like it has been such a tricky line to walk for me, where that sense of injustice and rage, and it feels deep and old and ancestral, and I'm honoring anyone on the call that has ever felt that. I did a live, you know, it was interesting. It was the day before International Women's Day. And so there was just something in the air about honoring women. And when this came up, my reaction was just to literally take my hands under the earth and just tear at a new one. Like to just absolutely no, like a carpet flip, like to just say, I'm done. And I want this gone, eradicated from the planet, just even the tendency, just even the hint of it. And so I had a few people in my ear to say, listen, he's 4 or he's 2 or, you know, whatever it is. And to understand, have me calm down and be like, that what you think is happening is not so, you know?
Yes. And to put this in a different context, so for people who are survivors of domestic violence growing up, and often kids tantrum and they will hit, and that's hard enough for any parent to keep their cool while being hit. It is especially hard for a parent who is a survivor of being beaten as a child. And there's a lot of primal fear that you are raising a child who is just like your abuser, that this is in your DNA, this has been passed down. Maybe, you know, your dad beat you and then you're trying to change the cycle, but now you've got this kid and this kid's hitting you and oh my God, have I just given birth to this monster? And it's really important to check in with your reaction that you're having. And you really mentioned some of the feelings, right? You've got like this rage, this blind rage, a huge amount of fear along with that. And whenever you feel that terror coming up inside of you, you can kind of do a little quick check-in with yourself and say, okay, I recognize these feelings and I recognize these are out of proportion to what just happened. And that tells me that I'm being triggered into a fight, flight, freeze response. Mm-hmm. And this is not to do with my child at all. This is not a reflection of who my child is at all. This is just old programming in my brain that because I was abused when I was really young, and it just affects the neural pathways. And when you can give yourself that moment to step back and say, okay, wait a minute, my reaction here is not really to do with the child at all, then you can give yourself that, okay, so I need to go take a breather right now. I need a mommy timeout or a daddy timeout. Mm-hmm. I need to go check in with myself and figure out what I need to do to take care of my inner child right now, who is terrified because I've just seen what looks like my history replaying itself. check in with reality for yourself and say, hey, that's not really what's happening. And then come back to your child later when you've already taken care of yourself, because you can't take care of your child in that moment when you are in that place, right? We're not in a good place to take care of our kids when we're triggered. So it always has to take, like, giving yourself that permission to take a moment, walk away if you can, lock yourself in the bathroom if you have to, but take a minute to give yourself the time to calm it down and to let the moment pass. You know, I did some great work with a therapist in integration-based stress removal. Well, I learned about just letting your body just like that, just shake it, literally shake it out of your system until you can feel that your nervous system is starting to calm back down again.
Mm-hmm. Can you still hear me? I know I'm frozen.
I can hear you still.
Okay. Thank you, because that's, you know, what I did do, and I sort of stepped over it, was I didn't actually, I did do what you said. I stepped back because I could feel the imbalance, you know, the innocent, I don't get it eyes. I think actually, you want to know what actually really triggered me was his indifference. So, and his indifference, the adult side says, well, that's psychotic, you know, like, oh my God, you know, like, he doesn't get it. And like, all of a sudden my kid is representing all of mankind at the age of 4. And he's like, what's the big deal? You know? And I'm like, what's the big deal? Raw, you know, you just kind of feel that, like I said, all that energy come up through. And I was like, okay, I don't have what I need right now. I need to just walk away. I said, I need to talk to you later about this. And I went and I reached out to a couple of people and said, I need some help right now. I am absolutely in the thralls of a reaction, and I need adult supervision, and how important that is for us to, you know, I hold that for other people. I need someone to hold it for me. And thank God I have people that can hold that for me too. Because none of us are immune to reactions. None of us who experience trauma or abuse or of any kind are immune from reactions. Our emotions are indicators that something needs attention. And for me to make my child responsible for that is a crime in itself, you know. And I was so worried afterwards about how much he saw in my face, because, you know, I knew I was being very transparent. You could see he could feel it. We feel energy, you know. I knew he felt, and I needed to, I backed off. I ended up going in and taking care of my energy, which is my emotions. I needed to take full responsibility for my emotional reaction and my response. And I was coached and held through that with such grace through, you know, my coach and even myself. I'm going to give myself credit actually, because, you know, and I hope anyone listening does that, you know, gives themselves that grace period of having a reaction and understanding that these things, these layers that get triggered from our children through simple, maybe innocent, natural growth phases, you know, natural layers of them being told, of course he should be indifferent. He should not understand the crimes of humanity of like what came before him. And so I took responsibility. I really went in and I moved that energy, which was on, you know, I'm surprised I didn't have popped blood vessels afterwards, because and you know, it was very interesting. I'll share this here. I was saying to Jill Prescott, was the one that was supporting me that night in particular, and she's in the Empathetic Badass group, and she's a healer and an intuitive coach as well. And she said, I feel like I'm stuck. Now I really want to talk about this. I feel like I'm stuck because I have so much rage, so much anger, so much energy in me that needs to move. I want to tear the world a new one. I want to scream. I want to bust down walls. That is how I feel. God help anybody that wants to actually go toe to toe with me right now, because I feel like I would eviscerate them. And she said, did you know that you can scream without making noise? And I sat there and I was just like, no, I I didn't know that. And she held it with such conviction. And she said, you can, I have done it. And it is there for you. And honestly, you want to know what part of me was like, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. I will really, really want to, I really, really want to tear the world a new one on behalf of all women, on behalf of anyone else, and of all people that have ever felt that injustice. And so she left me with it, and I just threw myself under the covers, and I tried it. And I'm here to say that I embodied. And this is the work I do with others, is to be able to embody those emotions, to shake, like what you were saying, that shaking is a natural part of expression. A lot of people, that frightens us. But if you look at the animal kingdom, that is exactly what animals do when they escape a predator. They go somewhere and then they shake. They literally do that. And so to allow for your body to express itself, I pulled on the sheets as though I was ripping the earth out of the ground. I opened my mouth and I tried it, and it was an experience I needed, and I felt the energy move up and out of my face into the air, and I just prayed for it to be received and healed and taken from something bigger and better than myself and changed in that moment, like offering it up. Because it did not belong in my house. It did not belong on my son. It did not belong between him and I. And I just trusted that it was the next layer that needed to be removed from me and maybe others. Yes. And what she shared with me next was, you just moved that, not just for you, but for me, for others. And she felt that. And that opens up to this empathetic experience, to be empathetic and to know that you feel things. That sometimes there are those in the world that they don't feel equipped, or that they have what it takes to express it. And I really appreciate that perspective, that maybe that gives my pain purpose.
Yes.
To give a pain purpose, that felt purposeful. So if I can offer that to anyone listening, that there's an opportunity to give your pain purpose when you understand that you might not just be embodying it for yourself, but for others. That isn't meant to be that you're responsible, but that the pain you feel honors others who also have gone through this.
Yes.
So I don't know how that lands or hits you, or anyone else on this call. Please feel free to share, what comes up for you as I share that.
Yeah, couple of things there. I'd like to go back to this. What's really important, I think, to talk about is that we are afraid of this anger that is inside of us because of the things that happened to us when we were children. And we are afraid that if we tap into this anger, this deep, what feels like a never-ending well of anger, that it will break the world, or it will break our world, or it will break us, or we will turn into abusers and break the people around us. We are so terrified of the power of this rage. But this rage is there because when you were a child and you were powerless to stop what was happening to you, you did not get to express that righteous rage in that moment. And it needs to be expressed in whatever way works for you. Personally, last year, I went through a really difficult period, and I went out and bought myself a punching bag, and I put it in my garage. And I realized I finally needed to take a look at this rage, and I needed to allow myself the opportunity to express it in a way that I was feeling safe, right? So this was me on my own, going and punching in my garage. For you, it was reaching out to a friend, which is another point I really wanted to touch on. That's a really powerful thing, is, in the moment when we are overwhelmed by these big feelings that feel like they could swallow us, we will often tune out, numb out, avoid. And what you did was you reached out and connected. And that's what we need to do in those moments, is we really need to reach out and connect with somebody who can support us through those feelings, and who's strong enough in themselves to be present with those feelings and not be overwhelmed by them. You need somebody that who can hold a space for you, who is not going to be intimidated by the power of those feelings, because that is a righteous, just anger. You have every right to have those feelings, and your child self, when you were being abused, never got that chance to feel that feeling. And the more we hold that in, and because we're afraid of it, the more it's a cancer that grows, right? You know, and Brene Brown talks about this a lot. It's that cancer of shame and secrecy that can quite literally make us ill. And making friends with our anger and recognizing when it comes up, it's there for a reason. This is not you being unreasonable. This anger is there for a reason, and it is asking to be expressed, and it is up to us as our adult selves to take care of that small child inside of us who never got that chance, and give him or her that opportunity to express that in a safe environment, and to realize once you have done that, that your world did not break.
Exactly. You know, I want to add to that. This is so, we're just getting a few comments. Ernie's just saying she's back. Thank you for joining us again. And Laura, thank you. She's sending love to both of us, and love back to you and anyone else that's feeling impacted by this conversation. And thank you, Lynn, for being here. It's absolutely important for us to create that experience where we get to express ourselves. If we don't, we'll die. You know, it's like express ourselves or die. There's like what I wanted to say to add on to that is that on the other side of that, of my expression, thank you, Ernie, that anger, by the way, I talk about this in other areas, is that anger is many, many things. It's never what we think it is. We think anger is proof that we're evil or bad, and it's furthest from the truth. It's actually a symptom of repression, of repressed power, of repressed creativity. Anything that's in us, we are born naturally whole, naturally creative, and naturally resourceful. And when those hoses or holes in our fountain, let's say, are plugged, and they finally there is a layer of anger that I think that is very natural that occurs in that expression about how long it's been since we've been able to express it. And it's not appropriate for a 3, 4, 5-year-old or even a young adult to have the words or the wisdom to articulate. And that's why I think it's really perfect timing, frankly, that we are more grown when we have these triggers, because we do become the container and the whole advocate, the advocate for these parts that step forward, the angry one, the hurt one, the one that never got, the one that did, whatever it is, to be that partner and advocate, and to be able to be the words and to bring the words to them and for them, to partner with those feelings and give them. It's like you get the stage now. It doesn't matter. The timing doesn't totally matter, from what I understand. It's more about the experience, being able to experience ourselves as fully expressed.
Yes. And
that in itself, the expression in itself is healing. And what I learned on the other side of this most recent one, which was within the last year, was that there is a sense of accomplishment within ourselves. And that's so weird to say. And a sense of, it's there if you stay long enough with it and say, what's here now, is what I want to say. A lot of us will have the anger, we'll express it, but we won't complete it. And I want to talk about this really. It's really important, because to complete it means, you know, when you have that breath of relief, when you feel like you're on the floor and you just feel like something has passed, or you have birthed something much bigger that you're done holding. And you lie there, maybe whimpering, maybe feeling weak, emptied, like an emptied balloon. But to say to yourself, what's here now? To look at the experience and say, I just did that. I just bead that. I moved that. I don't hold it anymore. It's gone. Or something new has taken its place. Like, even just relief is an accomplishment. Like, wouldn't we much rather feel a sense of relief over the rage? And to give ourselves that closed loop experience in the acknowledgement, I think is really important, because what you're doing is you're bringing that power back in-house. You're closing the loop, you're sealing the leaks, is what it feels like.
Yes.
Makes sense?
And once you move through that anger, quite often on the other side of that is grief. And this is a really important emotion that gets glossed over, and we don't make enough space. We don't hold enough space for grief in our lives. And I've seen this recently. Several friends have gone through the process of having their parents pass away. And what I saw there was this beautiful holding of space that the community around them gave for grieving. And that acknowledgement that this is not a short process, that this is a process that you will take years and most likely the rest of your life. That grief is a journey that you are on of healing, and it's not a short, quick, have a cry and move on.
Yeah.
And allowing ourselves to have that full range of emotional expression, expressing our rage, expressing our sadness, expressing our grief. When we allow that for ourselves, the ripple effect of that is that we allow our children to have those feelings. Because when we are afraid of any of those feelings inside of ourselves, what we unconsciously do is, if we see our kids having feelings like that, is we will shut it down, and we will not let them have those feelings. And it might be even in the most well-meaning of ways, like, here, let me bribe you with a piece of candy so that you don't have to feel that feeling. Yeah. But we're unconsciously teaching our children to be afraid of their own emotions, because we're afraid of our emotions. So when we let ourselves have that opening into whatever that feeling is, and as you said, you sit with it through the whole range of experience until it feels complete. And this is not a one-time thing. This is a practice. This is a lifetime practice of sitting with the things that feel really freaking uncomfortable and painful, and allowing them to come up and allowing the wave to pass, and seeing that you are still standing on the other side of that wave. That's the lifetime practice that we do it for ourselves. And it has this beautiful ripple of effect of doing that for our children and all the people around us. Yes.
Amen. And then when you're standing on the shore of riding that wave, that's where confidence is. Like, that's where people think, I want to feel more confident. And we would never think that going into doors like shame or blame or whatever, all those, the awful, or rage, that we could walk in a door called rage and walk and then leave feeling peace or accomplishment or confidence about. To me, confidence is knowing. It's like knowing that you're capable of surviving, or knowing you're capable of experiencing something so big, and seeing the full completeness of it, like the beginning, middle, and the end. And that's what I was saying about that feeling of accomplishment, and strength to pick up what's left over after that experience that's on the shore. Strength, confidence, insight, wisdom, maybe creativity, maybe new ideas. What happened after that is I was able to clear the energy. What you're doing is you're clearing the energy, taking responsibility for your reactions, clearing the energy completely. And what's underneath all of that crap that we haven't expressed up until that point are things like your intuition, your instincts, your a clarity that is felt, an energy. So I went back into the room the next day, and we sat and we had a very different conversation. One where there was nothing in the air of blame or shame, which was totally in the air the night before, and an opportunity for me to explain myself, which I think a lot of parents, we're extending this, by the way, it's 1:05, but I think this is important just to, if you're okay hanging on for just a few more minutes, Joyelle, I want to respect your time. But to give myself an opportunity to explain it myself. And a lot of parents feel like that is far too vulnerable to reveal our own experiences to our children. And I said, the reason I was so upset last night was because when I was young, I had an experience where someone did something that I wasn't comfortable with. And it was around my private parts. And it was, and then later on, I have explained a little bit more without being shocking, with just being very factual about the experience I had, but also very communicative about how it felt. And to me to look into their eyes and say, do you understand why I reacted that way? And my intention wasn't to make you feel bad, because I think you're this, that, and the other. I think you're amazing. I think you're a wonderful boy. I think you're kind, considerate, and trying, part of it was just trying to fill that space that there was potential blame, that there was that potential of him receiving that message just energetically. And to do my best, at trying to clean it up. In a perfect world, I would have done it in the moment, but we don't live in a perfect world. We have to go back and say, you know what? Yesterday I behaved in a way that I'm not super proud of. And here's some of the reasons why. Can you understand that? And man, will our kids ever surprise the hell out of us? I've gotten such incredible feedback from them.
And I think that's a really important topic too, is disclosing to your kids at an age appropriate level. These are the things that happened to me, and this is why I react this way sometimes. I had to have a conversation with my son recently, and it's really challenging to say things to him when he's so young and innocent and naive, and I don't want to take that away from him, but at the same time he needs to understand why mommy's reacting a certain way sometimes. And, to say things like, when mom was a kid, somebody hurt her, and that has had an impact on her. And, and it can be just as simple as that. I was hurt as a child by somebody who, was in a position of trust. And, as your kids get older, you can give more details as needed. Yeah. But, we talked about this. We had one of our contributing authors to Parenting with PTSD, Kelly Wilson, wrote this great post recently about the benefits, the advantages of telling your child about your PTSD. And I think that you just touched on that, Keri-Anne, which is you get to open up this conversation with your kids and help them understand you better. You get to have this moment of connection with them instead of just shutting down and trying to hide it and hiding it away, because in the absence of information, children will interject, and children are narcissistic by nature and will interject that it's about them and that there is something wrong with them. So if we're not talking to them about our inner wounds from our childhood, they might project that on themselves and believe that the reactions that we are having are completely because of them. And we don't want that for them, right?
Yeah, that's the last thing we want.
Yeah. So as scary as it can feel to say, I'm going to talk with my kid about my abuse history, your abuse history is there in your life, in your home, in your actions all the time anyway. It's not like you're sheltering your child from that by not speaking about it.
And there's something really interesting that I've noticed in my kids. I learned it early on, but I still love seeing it, which is when I admit, I guess, that I've had experiences, or that I'm not perfect, or that I make mistakes, and that I'm trying to learn from them. There's such an empowerment, an energy of empowerment that I get back from them, like that I sense from them. Like I've seen it in them, and I felt it in them, that they're like, I feel really friggin' important right now. Like it's in the air. Like when we can make our kids, I didn't know that. I didn't know that would happen, to get that immediate feedback through their energy, through their words, and just how they held themselves was like, they felt special. Like they felt like I was treating them with such respect. They would never call it that though. Yeah. They just seemed to almost be puffed up chested about it, like, wow. And kind of I don't want to say grown up, like as if they were walking around like adults, but they just held themselves differently afterwards. And the relationship changed. Like there was a respect there that I just did not expect at such a young age, for them to, and I didn't realize I was creating an avenue for them to come back and say, and keep the conversation going, even though you say it, but it's created a whole new relationship as a parent to my children that I had. And I felt like I had a really incredible opportunity at 8 or 9 when I did come out with my parents and share things, but to have it at an even younger age. I mean, who knows what the ripple effects from that will be, but it's possible, and that our children are far more capable and they'll only process what is appropriate. So even if we do fuck up and say something that is really inappropriate, they will only hear what they're kind of able to process, because none of us are going to do this perfectly.
No, it's an awkward, challenging conversation, but it's like I said, it's there anyway in your home and in your life, and your kids are being impacted by your childhood abuse, whether you're talking about it or not. So it's not like you're keeping them safe by not talking about it. And the more you open up that conversation with them, the more they get to see you, like you said, as a human, and they get to see that you respect them enough to have that conversation on that level with them. And it's only going to bring you closer to your kids.
There's an opportunity there to co-create, is what I'm being reminded of. Like, to say, what can we, so I talk a lot about agreements, I think it's time for a new agreement here. Like, what can we create together to make sure that you feel safe, and that you feel heard, and that I can express, that we can all express ourselves? Is there,
right,
to make sure we talk about how we feel, or for a while there we had a signal because they had this signal. My son, my oldest, he's incredible. He would hold his finger up, like almost like an kind of gesture. Mm-hmm. And that was his signal for, honest to God, it was, Mom, you're talking too much. So, meaning, as a mom, and I'm sure anybody that's on this call can relate to over-explaining. We get on this path of over-explaining, and what I didn't understand was my over-explaining things, or wanting to make sure I hit every freaking angle. It's overwhelming. And so I couldn't stop it. And right. So I started noticing it. And he said, it's just like, and I said, oh my God, when I talk, it's over. And I said, well, what can we do? And he said, I can do this. And he lifted his finger up. So now I know that's a signal for me to just shut up. He's like, and honestly, he's like, I just need a minute. Like, give me a minute. And when my finger comes down, then I'll talk, but until then, so we've had that, it's fascinating and humbling, and oh my God.
Yeah. But in general, when you're going into these big conversations, I mean, if you can keep it to 1 to 2 sentences,
yes.
And just let them, I mean, if they have more questions, they will ask. They don't need the whole chapter. And of course, it's not appropriate for us to detail for our children what horrors we lived through. That is not ever. No. I don't even detail that with adults in conversation.
And it wasn't that. Just to be clear, it wasn't me explaining. It was more like, and here's what's possible, and da-da-da, and like almost just like, and like, what if we did this, and what if we do that? And it's more of that. He's like, oh, enough talking.
Mom, I can't handle it all. Yeah. But when we're communicating with our kids about something that's hard for us, sometimes that's our tendency, right? Is to just kind of run off at the mouth, because that's a nervous habit. So keeping in mind that if you're going into a conversation with your kids about your abuse or about another issue that might be triggering for you, to just try to keep it brief. And remember that, they will, like you said, they'll take in what they need to at that moment. And when they're ready for more information, they will come to you and ask for it, as long as they know it's a safe environment to ask.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we could probably talk about this all damn day. I mean, there's really so many doors that I've opened in this one conversation. So I guess I want to open up and just thank you guys for the comments. Thank you, Lynn, for being here, Ernie. And Frida just saying it's really great to hear you talking about this. It's really normalizing. Can you hear me now?
All right, I've lost my connection with Keri-Anne here. So yes, thanks. I do believe it's really important to normalize these conversations. And when we can take that giant emotional weight out of it and just talk about our realities and our lived experiences, it takes the intensity out of it and allows us to see that we're all the same. We're all just struggling to do the best we can as parents, regardless of what has happened to us. And if you'd like to learn more about the work that I do, you can go to parentingwithptsd.com or search for us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Parenting with PTSD, the book comes out this Friday. I'm super excited. And we will have a free download on Amazon. You can get the Kindle version from October 12th to October 14th. You can download the Kindle version of the book for free. And if you'd like to get a little reminder email sent out to you for that, just go to parentingwithptsd.com and sign up on our email newsletter, and we'll send you the little link so that you can just go one click, and there you go, download your free copy. And please come visit us over there and say hi. And remember that whatever you're going through, whatever your experiences are, you're never alone. There's always somebody else going through that too. And the more you can talk about it, the healthier you and your family will be. Thanks so much, Keri-Anne, for having me here today.
Thank you so much for being here. I don't know if you can hear me, but it looks as though I am live on Facebook. So thank you so much for letting me be a part of the book as a contributing author, and to have this conversation, open it up, and to keep the conversation going around this, to leave your questions and your comments down below to keep it going. And thank you, Joyelle, so much for being here. And thank you, everyone that contributed. You aren't alone. We are all here, and sending so much love out to everyone on the call. And thank you so much. We will see you in the comments as this continues. Thank you. Bye.